Echo cardboard box is now with Nelson Ogunshakin, who's the Chief Executive of the ACE, whose conference this is. And this morning we had a keynote from Lord Dighton, and it was excellent, and I'd like to get Nelson's opinion of what he thought of it.
I think Paul was absolutely on the money. As you probably know, through what we do with NIPSEPs, we're very close with the Treasury.
Yes.
A year ago, Paul talked about 3 big projects, which is High Speed 2, Inclusive, and more important, Thames Tideway.
Right.
I think we've moved on from the case for infrastructure, and I think the conversation now has moved into a mature stage, which is building a sustainable economic growth.
Right.
And in that part means we've got to look at delivery. And he talked about big issues. So what are the key 3 points I pick up?
Yes.
One, he said the National Infrastructure Plan should not be a static, it should be an ongoing document.
Yes.
Because we need to demonstrate that not only are we scheduling projects, but we are delivering projects.
Yes.
If we are to attract inward investment, then it's absolutely imperative that we need to demonstrate what we're committed to do. Second, he talks about financeability, which means that it's not lack of funding, but it's actually seeing pipeline of projects coming through in a confident manner. So if your interest is very much looking at an asset-based investment as a private pension scheme, so you want to see a regular frequency of that project coming through. And that could be in the highway agency moving into not just 1 year program, but effectively a 5 years rolling program.
Okay.
If it's to do with the issue to do network rail, then it's about 5 years program. So you get continuity. So that's the first one. Second one he talked about was issue about, integrity of the planning process, which I think was critical. Now, we've always doubted whether the UK planning process is a bit convoluted and difficult. Whilst it's not perfect, but it gives the democratic system in a place that allows it to work. I think the challenge for us is not doing projects just fast, but doing it to schedule.
That was really interesting.
That was the key point.
Yes.
And so from that point of view, it means that we need to be more realistic in terms of our planning. We need to be more realistic in terms of our budgeting. So we don't cut it too low and then come back and say, we've actually exceeded the budget. So if you take ISP2, so 40 billion, people think is big, but it's not any different from the Olympic. You have sufficient contingency there that allows that to happen.
Yes.
So the key message for me was the NIP, National Infrastructure Plan, is a live document, and the industry needs to support that. The second one is the financeability, which is pipeline and interest. The third one is to do with the integrity of the planning. And more important is the deliverability. So we need to deliver to time, to budget. And there's a call for action there, which I welcome.
And what do you think that the consultancy sector can contribute to make that happen?
I think there's a traditional view within the professional consultancy and engineering sector to say we will come into engagement when the project's already been conceived. I think that's the old debate. I think it's extremely important recognizing the consultancy and engineering's role is multifaceted. You may be working with the government in helping to define the scope of the project, but at the same time, you may be involved with the PFI PPP model. And you may also be involved with the pension fund who wants to invest in that project. So there is a 3-strand to it. So what can we do? We can't afford to sit in silo. We need to engage from the beginning to end. We have to see from asset management. We have to see it from asset realization. And it's extremely important that the conversation with government, the conversation with investors, conversation with fund provider, and also asset management is working with them in a holistic manner, not just being the designer, but in a very holistic manner.
From that, do you think the consultancy sector needs to understand more about what the supply chain is bringing into the project?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the fascinating part of it, which a lot of consultants don't really understand, is that we are the front end.
Yeah.
And if we help to define the scope of the project, not just purely about technical design, but look at the project from project conceptualization to the product delivery, and then there's an asset management. So we have a lot of contribution. And from that point of view, the supply chain is critical. We need to understand what is the best material, what is the best way of sourcing it. And part of that is actually having the resources. So it's not just human capital, but also other resources that's required. So the consultancy sector have a very big role to play in defining the project, defining the product, defining the material, defining the supply chain, and also, this is critical, and also working with the client to make sure, one, the client is an enlightened client.
Right, yes, yes.
And two, is an enlightened to the extent that knows the interconnectivity between the supply chain and engage the supply chain at the right time, so that some of the traditional challenges we have, which means project overrun, you can mitigate that.
So do you think the consultants need to make a bit more time to get to know the people that make the products and the tier 1, tier 2,
absolutely,
tier 3 contractors?
Absolutely, Jackie, absolutely. Absolutely imperative, because you cannot specify without knowing the intricacy of what the mix is.
Right.
You cannot do that.
No.
And so if you don't understand what makes, the product he's trying to do and the best combination of doing it, you cannot specify that. And that's what I mean by the intellectual thinking that needs to go in advising client should come from the consultancy sector.
It's really going to be very interesting watching that develop, I think.
I think from the way things are going, if you look at the BEAM concept now, is a game changer for the industry.
Right.
It's not new, but it's a game changer for our sector, in the sense that suddenly we start to work together as a continuum.
Yes.
And it's no longer a blame culture about whose PI I need to worry about,
right, yes.
who's going to be carrying the can. It's all about making one thing and one thing only important, which is the project success.
Right.
How do we make that project successful? Because that's a unique selling point of the Olympic. We all work together towards one goal: the client, the supply chain, the contractor, the product supplier, towards delivering that Olympic. And if we take that philosophy back into everything we do, then we have a great opportunity to make UK the leading profession in the industry.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Nelson, thank you very much.